and woolly mammoth, and they were going to try and recreate it. And he said, that woolly mammoth? I said, yes. He said, where will that be? So, you know, unless that could have been a real phobia and a real fear, but unless he'd mentioned it, I wouldn't have been able to say, no, it's not next door or down the street. You know, it's okay. So a lot of kids don't have that. I saw a guy at the airport a few weeks ago. He had a 12-month-old in a sling facing him with its own iPad, and he was doing his phone over the child's head. I thought, whoa, okay.
But, I mean, in a way, it sparked your lifelong advocacy for the rights of children. And I think that's another really important part of your life.
Yes, it is. And I'm proud to be the patron of the Australian Children's Laureate. Some of the board members are here today, where every 2 years they nominate a wonderful Australian children's writer to go out and promote literature and literacy in young children and older children too. But so whatever I can do in that area, particularly to focus on very young children, I'm more than happy to do, because they don't have a voice. They don't have a voice. And particularly in terms of abuse, young children are often abused and they're not believed, or they don't speak up. So I think, again, whatever we can do to help young children make sense of this incredibly confusing world that none of us can make any sense of, by reassuring them and loving them and giving them a safe space, is worth doing.
I just want to tell you, my grandchildren have a voice, a very loud one. I'm in also this early, I know, most probably it came from your parents, this insistence on integrity in your career from a very early age.
Yeah, I didn't consciously recognise that it came from them in performing, but it certainly came from them in their living. I remember my father once had a tax bill for like tuppence, and he wrote them a cheque. So absolute honesty was the model, but the integrity in the work came about. You know, I started off as a young blonde and had to be wearing leopard skin negligees and stuff just in the paying my dues section of my career. And it didn't, until I was in the Sullivans where I had to cry, no one took me seriously. So I just think, sorry, I've lost the track now. What did you ask me about the integrity? Integrity. Yeah, integrity. Yeah, I always thought if I didn't want to pay money, or if I didn't want to give my attention to a story, why would I expect anyone else to? And I didn't want to do anything that promulgated myths about women, which narrowed the field considerably. You know, because for a long time, most young women's roles were as sidekick or love interest or a two-dimensional character. But I always believed if the women are two-dimensional, the men aren't going to be three-dimensional, because why would you only have two-dimensional women around you? So, and I have a low boredom threshold. I like to keep doing different things. But I just wanted to put out a big part of stories that have a reason to exist that is valid. Whether that's because, you know, if I can model a person who has no empathy and show the consequences of that, that's valuable. You know, that has some value. To me, anyway, if I saw that, I'd think it was valuable. And I think Elizabeth Bly in A Place to Call Home is a perfect example of that character. And some of the Save a Place to Call Home fans are here today too. But, you know, when I started that, everyone said, oh, she's such an old bitch. I said, no, she isn't. She's the result of her upbringing and her times and her life experience, which was rotten. And so peeling the layers of the onion back, people began to go, oh, actually, she's a human being. And that, to me, was a wonderful journey. I kept saying to Bevan Leese, don't kill her. Please don't kill her. I need the work, which is true. But, you know, there was talk of killing her off. I said, don't you even think about it. Her journey is not complete. So she ended up finally having a love interest, which was wonderful, although he died.
You're on Nightlife. It's a literary lunch with Noni Hazelhurst. She's being interviewed by Margaret Pomeranz. Some more Noni in just a moment.
There are a lot of things that I think Australia does better than Britain. Beer and beaches.
It sounds like you're about to drop a bomb. Breakfast.
The whole point of having a yeast extract spread on your toast is that you have to revile people. And Marmite is just more disgusting. We have to just admit that Marmite has won the Great Yeast War.
Jack Whitehall, it's a narrow path to victory, but in tearing down Marmite, I think you've kept us on side. Start your day with Sammy J.
Weekdays from 5:30
On 774 ABC Radio Melbourne. This is Nightlife with Suzanne Hill.
Also a little later this hour, we'll see how the Queensland election is going. There were some predictions it was going to be, very much the LNP's way. I think the night is turning out to be a lot more interesting than a lot of people thought it might be. But yes, we are bringing you a literary lunch with Noni Hazelhurst, of course, an Australian film and TV legend. She's recently published a memoir called Dropping the Mask. She's in conversation here with film critic Margaret Pomeranz. We're going to pick up with Noni explaining to Margaret that her career in film and TV didn't always provide her with financial stability.
I love the unpredictability of what I do, and I've always, in my old hippie way, sort of trusted that the universe will provide. And it has, and I've been very lucky. But it's really tough. I mean, most actors would count a year in which they had a theatre, a play, a couple of days on a film and maybe an episode of a television show as a really good year. And that might really only add up to about 6 weeks' work. And it's incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to find an employer for a part-time job that is okay with you saying, look, I've got to go and do an audition tomorrow morning, is that okay? That's why Play School was so coveted, because it was a part-time job that, helped us through it was the gravy if you had any meat, if you like. But it's incredibly hard. Theatre is really badly paid, and again, there's no guarantee. There's 95% of actors out of work at any given time in Australia, so it's very competitive and very tough. But saying that, it's at least something different every day. I don't have to go to the same place every day with the same people and the same office politics, and so I'm blessed on that level. And I love what I do. I mean, you have to love it, because the rewards aren't that great if you don't.
That must have been actually the blessing of something like Better Homes and Gardens and A Place to Call Home, because that was a 6-year run, and, well, nearly not, because Channel 7 dropped it. And actually, it was picked up the year I started with Foxtel 2 by Brian. Yeah, but Brian Walsh, the late Brian Walsh from Foxtel, was really the person who managed to get Place to Call Home 4 more seasons, which was quite remarkable. And it's been sold to over 140 countries. I mean, there's still an international fan club that talks every day. We recently did a 10-year anniversary with a Zoom, with lots of the fans from around the world, and all the different actors, and Bevan himself all took part in those Zooms. And it's lovely, because to know that you've been part of something that has moved people and had an effect on them. We get lots of letters from people saying, I watched it with my mum who lived through that time, and it really, she can't speak or necessarily communicate, but I could tell that she was nostalgic about the 50s and the time that we portrayed on screen. So when you're portraying something on screen that people actually remember, it has to be good, it has to be right, and I think that authenticity, we had the best people in the world working on that show in all departments, and, kudos to them, because they did a wonderful job creating a world for us.
Of the fact that it was Brian's sister who rang him and said, they're taking, Place to Call Home off that Channel 7, you've got to do something. So it was sort of like, once again, the female voice making a demand. I don't know if Brian's seen it.
I don't think he had, and also the fans were so outraged at the pathetic ending that 7 had given us for the second season. But they had this sort of, the same thing happened with City Homicide. First year, lots of promotion, flashing lights, press launch, la la la. Second year, later and later time starting, random episodes from the first season going on instead of the second season, 2 episodes back to back for no apparent reason. And the same with Place to Call Home. They kept showing it later and later and later, changed the night, and it was clear that it was all too hard. Instead of promoting us as their flagship international drama, it just became, it's too expensive and we don't want to do it. So they'd sold the sets, they'd broken down all the costumes, all the props had all gone when Brian Walsh reinstated it, to the point where a matching continuity dress for one of the characters had to be screen printed to match the end of the second season because all the clothes had been sold off. So it was quite extraordinary expenditure on
Had
Brian's
to
part.
start from scratch.
Yep, all the vehicles had been sold, everything gone.
Sheesh.
Mm.
Okay, was it expensive?
Very